Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about the 3DO company, the console, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Threk. How you doing, Threk?
Oh, I'm recovering. How are you? Did you have a good Christmas?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Me and Alex, we drove up to our parents' house, spent the day with them for it, and then we drove back. And I stayed up till like 4 in the morning doing a Lego set because I'm insane.
Yeah, it's good to see Alex is back. You know, she's back on her cursed memes, and I'm assuming she's back on the show. So I'm glad she's in a better spot as well.
Yeah, nah, she's back. We actually did the season finale for GNC last week, so that should be coming out this upcoming weekend, and then we begin the preparations for season 4. So that's going to be a lot of work, but I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. So yeah, for my Christmas, I was sick basically the whole. So Christmas Eve, everything was fine. In fact, Christmas Eve was actually a good time. And I indulged way too much in sugary confectionaries and stuff. So I woke up Christmas Day with like a horrible migraine, nausea, fatigue, the whole thing. Like I missed all the Christmas Day festivities, which to be fair with us, we don't do that much of. It's usually just Christmas Eve. But like it was so bad, I literally just made myself throw up just to try to feel better. And that did help me to start to feel better. And I was supposed to work today, after the day after Christmas when we we're recording this. But I just was like, let me just swap this day with my normal day off. So I took this day to feel better. Somehow playing Cyberpunk was good recovering stuff. That's a whole mess to talk about. But yeah, I'm in a better place health wise, thankfully. So and I did get some gifts. I'm wearing a Minnesota Viking pajama set, which my mom got me, which was nice.
Nice.
Not a lot of other stuff beyond that. I think my family is just kind of toned down the gift giving between the adults. It's mostly just you give the stuff to the kids, which is fine. Like I think you are like me, where it's if you want something, you just go out and get it.
Yeah,
You don't
that's
really
kind
wait
of.
for Christmas.
I care more about the gifts I get from my parents and Alex. Like that's kind of my favorite part of it, because like nowadays it's like I love my mom, but she tries like so hard on Christmas, and I'm always like, she's like, I hope you like this. I'm like, Mom, it's fine. Like, I'm not, I don't need like the world. It's one of those things. She loves this time of year, and like I appreciate everything she does. So.
Yeah. We all love our moms out here. My mom puts a lot of work into this time as well, but that's usually more with like cooking food and just trying to have a good atmosphere for everybody to just kind of enjoy themselves in that kind of thing. She's not. She does when she goes all out with gifts. She does, but she always tries to be sure everybody gets something. So I appreciate that. But yeah, she's great. So
yeah. One of the things. So every year, me and my mom, we do like a yearly like trip. We'll go to like a race. So like last couple of years, we've been going to like NASCAR races. Like we went to like Martinsville, Richmond, Bristol, like all like the big tracks, just for like a 1 yearly trip where we'll go for like a weekend. She changed it up this year though. This year we're gonna go to an IndyCar race down in Alabama, so that'll be cool.
Yeah. I'm told Indy races are a lot of fun.
I've been, NASCAR annoys me a lot lately just because they're so wishy washy on their rules, and the sport is kind of so inconsistent lately. IndyCar has actually been like really interesting because it's like the most like genuine like racing, like because all the cars are pretty much equal, and it's just about the craziness of like the races. Then they have like the greatest race of all time, which is like the Indy 500. So
Yeah. Are the I hate to ask, but are the politics of NASCAR events a little apparent? Could that make the environment a little harsher?
So that's actually the thing about NASCAR. Going to a race is great because everyone there is like fucking like the nicest people you will ever run into. It's just like watching the races now on TV is just fucking frustrating because you're like, you can clearly tell they're trying to chase like the popularity that they had back in '05, and it's never coming back. It's just one of those things. And
Just kind of let it be.
yeah. Meanwhile, IndyCar is like pretty healthy with their actual racing package, but they just don't know how to freaking market their sport anymore.
Yeah, but I get the sense that like just kind of the popularity of racing in general just has like waves, you know.
Ironically,
It
it's
just
more,
comes and goes.
it's super popular outside of America because
Oh
Formula One
yeah,
is like the biggest thing in the world. Just because,
yeah.
and I mean, Formula One's pretty big in America now because of the Netflix show and stuff. But
Yeah, Formula One is cool, but like, see, I enjoy that kind of like European racing where it's like they're going through like the Swiss Alps on like roads that are like this small and like the curves are super tight, and it's like they might die, but you know, that's fun.
rally racing where they're just like driving
Yeah,
through somebody's neighborhood, and if they make one wrong turn, there's like,
they're yes, that's the shit I like. Put some excitement into that, you know.
yeah, racing in general is a really interesting sport. I get the whole aspect that it's boring to watch, but it's kind of like one of those things where like you just got to go to a race and like see it in person, and you end up getting hooked after.
I could see that, but I think for us and for this show as well, we playing a racing game is definitely much more exciting, at least for me, and that works well because today we are talking about the Need for Speed presented by Road and Track.
Quite possibly, in hindsight, thinking of all the games that released for 3DO, this might be the longest lasting, probably biggest like most probably the biggest like legendary series to ever come off of this thing.
And nobody would have ever put these two together. You
No,
know,
like whenever people ask like what games debuted on 3DO, you can say Gex, but everyone knows Gex. That's kind of like the one that people know. If you want to like really shock someone, tell them that like Need for Speed got its start on 3DO.
well, and Gex hasn't had a new entry in decades.
True.
Like Need for Speed is still going. Like it's never stopped. It's
Oh,
had like at least every couple of years like a new game come out. I mean, hell, it had a new entry excuse me, it had a new entry last year.
it
Which
had
I've
a
heard good
feature
things
length
about.
film,
That
which
it did.
I don't know if it was any good or not. I didn't watch it, but
It's probably not, but it depends on what year that film came out.
yeah. So it because I remember when I was first getting into like 3DO, like one of the big games I had to try out was Need for Speed, just because that was like one of the few games I actually played as a kid on the PlayStation version. I wanted to know like how good it was on its original console.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. It's interesting because I did play both for this review.
Real quick, the film came out in 2014. And looking at the cover of it, I'm like, oh, this is such a Fast and Furious ripoff.
Yeah.
That's probably what the whole movie is. Like it's Need for Speed in name only.
Yeah, because they made a game version of the film too, which I thought was kind of funny.
That's great. It has Aaron Paul, Dominic Cooper, Kid Cudi, Michael Keaton. It has like a surprisingly like notable cast. It was a Disney movie. It's distributed through Disney. That's weird.
It might have been Fox at the time.
No, it says Disney through Touchstone.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So,
oh, maybe it's on Disney Plus. I can watch it there.
There you go. Yeah, report back because I'm not going to watch that stinker.
No. But yeah,
this game Need for Speed, the Need for Speed. This game was made for the 3DO. It was the first, like it came on 3DO first. It was made for the system. So in a way, this game is the 3DO's legacy. Because even if you compare it to the game most people know and love from the 3DO, which is Road Rash, like both of them are EA properties. And when I was playing through Need for Speed, I couldn't help but feel there is some Road Rash DNA here, but it is doing something different with the Road Rash DNA. It's not trying to be a high octane combat kind of racer with weird fisheye lens people. You know, it feels like Need for Speed is trying to be respectable, which sounds like I'm insulting Road Rash, but like,
well, Road Rash is still like arguably the best game on the system in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, and I think this is a rare instance of a game that is, nipping at the heels as it was for that title, because I think this game is pretty good, especially for the time. It's really solid. I think racing games have evolved past this, obviously, but for a racer from like 95, 94 that's
90,
trying, yeah, it's
94.
94, yeah. So it's as old as me. And it trying to be a kind of a simulation racer. It's in a pre-Gran Turismo world, which, sounds very daunting. I think it does a very solid job with what it is attempting to do.
Yeah, Need for Speed really kind of like treaded that line between like the hardcore sims like Gran Turismo and later Forza and the more arcadey style like racing games, because like it's really kind of in this middle ground where like it's not super sim, but it's still a little arcadey at times as well.
I think I feel I'm not too sure about my racing game knowledge, but I feel like this is probably the most sim heavy racing game of its time. Because when did the first Gran Turismo come out? Like 97, 98?
It was late PS2, so I want to say probably like 97-ish.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
so,
PS1. Sorry.
Yeah, so, but it felt like Gran Turismo was the series that sort of, this is how you do the simulation racer. Like that was the big boom for simulation racers, right? And
I just double checked. It was 97 when Gran Turismo came out.
Yeah, and so we still live in that sort of Gran Turismo world of simulation racers, basically, like where Forza and all these other series kind of copped from. But Need for Speed feels like Gran Turismo probably took some influence from this game, because what I like is all the cars feel different.
Yeah, this feels like one of the first real racing games I can think of that like you actually felt like you were really driving, because like I'm thinking of like arcade racers at the time, and like you had like the obvious ones like Daytona USA, Virtual Racing, the Cruising series, like, and they're all very arcadey.
Oh, absolutely. You can even go further back than that with like Outrun, or what's
Test Drive was technically a thing around.
Test Drive. What was the Namco one? Not Rally X, but the other one that was like behind. It's on the Namco Pole Position. Yes. It feels like Need for Speed is just kind of on that line of like that racing game chronology. You know what I mean?
Like Namco took some influence from this game as well, because I mean Ridge Racer came out shortly after.
Yeah, and Ridge Racer feels like the closest comparison to this game. But Ridge Racer has more of that sort of Japanese feel to it, whereas this is pure Western, 100%. It's sponsored by a goddamn Western racing magazine, Road and Track, that still exists. They do bi-monthly pressings, I think.
So I used to read Road and Track back in the day, just because it had some racing stuff in it every now and then. It's a car magazine. There's like really not a whole lot. Like it's fine if you're into that stuff.
Does it have scantily clad women all over the cars, or is it just the cars?
I think it's just the cars.
Oh, then it's bullshit.
Yeah. Maybe the older ones did. The newer ones, it's mostly just cars.
Yeah, the first issue of Road and Track was in 1947, and it's still going. That's very impressive. But yeah, the Road and Track influence, I think, comes in the what I call the car porn of this game. I'm sure you agree with me. Because every car, they have a video for it that you can just watch it just kind of do its thing. Like it's very sort of like, as I said, car porn. But also it's impressive for its era that they were really able to, like, they have real cars. Like these are all licensed cars as far as I know. Like you have a Toyota Supra, a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, and some others. I forget them all off the top of my head. But
this is hands down the best looking 3DO game we've played so far.
Yeah, especially for a mostly 3D racer. It looks good and it's surprisingly smooth. I didn't have any like issues with it as far as like the driving portion was considered. I mean, yeah, it's not a perfect game, but it runs really well. Though I know if you put Need for Speed in an emulator, like a 3DO emulator, and you overclock the CPU, it runs even better, which I would recommend doing if you haven't done.
Yeah, the PlayStation version plays better. Like, as respectable as the 3DO version is, you can clearly tell the PlayStation is just a more powerful system.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. One thing I didn't like about this game, as I had pointed out to you, was the menus.
Oh,
Yeah,
it,
so the 3DO menus for the listeners at home, basically it gives you a collage of like 5 images, and you
and it
have
doesn't tell you what any of them do.
no, like it's trying to be intuitive. That's like, oh, the pictures of the cars. That's where you like select your car, or you'll just see like a random street. It's like, oh, those are like the track selections. The steering
Mm.
wheel is the options. The key is to start, and then there's just the random guy in the middle. The it feels like they had to throw in some FMV just because it was like filling a quota or something. So they just have one guy who I don't have his name, but I think he must have been like on the dev team. I think he looks like a programmer. He doesn't look like a car guy, but he's not bad. He's not bad. He's kind of cheeky, um, and and he has something kind of interesting to say at the end of every race, regardless of if you do well or not. You know, he's a bit of a shitbag, but I don't mind him. You know,
The thing with these menus, like, and this like goes with pretty much every 3DO game because it's kind of been a running theme is that 3DO menus don't make any fucking sense most of the time.
they
Um,
don't.
it's honestly just kind of, I think, a product of the time where 3DO was really the first console to try a lot of these things. And they clearly didn't know what the direction was going to be yet. So they tried all these quote unquote interesting ideas. And in hindsight, they haven't held up well, but for the time, they're at least unique.
Yeah, for sure. And it has a style to it. But what I like about Need for Speed is that the style doesn't overtake the game. It's not
Mm.
a style over substance like some 3DO games we've played.
Yeah. And
This still go ahead.
I was going to say, and I can confirm the PlayStation and also this game had a Saturn port as well. And
Ooh.
I'm assuming the PC version as well. They all had a much more conventional menu system for their versions of the game because that honestly that was the reason I played PlayStation because I was like because I remembered as a kid I was like the menus weren't this fucking confusing to me as a child. So I was like I have to check and make sure it was probably the PlayStation version. And sure enough, booting that up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the typical 1 player, 2 player like challenge modes, all that jazz. So
Yeah, because like there's not that many modes in this game. You know, there's
no,
like it's basically just race to the end, and it's either you either race against this guy or you don't. And that's
yes,
basically kind of it. And apparently the 3DO version only has
three
the
tracks.
the three courses you can choose, which all have like three
PlayStation and
tracks each, whereas the other ones have I think 6.
yeah, PlayStation and Saturn added an additional 3 courses. You could tell with the PlayStation Saturn versions, it was EA was basically just taking the game and cleaning it up for the modern systems.
Yeah, yeah. Though I will say the tracks aren't bad. Like
No, like they're
they're
fun.
yeah, they're very road rashy, you know, or it's like mostly straight lines with some slight turns here and there. But they do a lot with the environment, you know, where it's like you go under tunnels and like Road Rash, there's cars you have to avoid. Um, but there was one, I think it was like on the coast where you get to a certain section, there's just a bunch of hot air balloons up in the sky.
Yeah,
Like, that
I
was
love
really
that one.
cool. There is some really solid window dressing in all the tracks,
Mm.
which give it some extra flair.
It's
Um,
interesting to me too because the 3DO infamously wasn't particularly, despite its name, was not the best console in terms of 3DO power. I mean,
yeah.
3DO power, 3D graphical power. This game to me though surprised me because there is some really good polygon work. Like it looks honestly like they took the Road Rash engine and just like upgraded it and made it like full 3D, which is really impressive.
Yeah, I think that's what they did because I mean the game feels like Road Rash in some
Mm.
ways. And one thing I liked is when if you ever spin out and you see the front of the car, like they modeled all of these cars 3D in like the 3D to look exactly like they do in real life, which I was genuinely impressed by that as well. Like the technology in this game is surprisingly solid for what it
This
is,
game
and
looks
the
better than
technology. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this game looks better than some racers on like early racers on PS1.
Oh,
So
for sure, for sure. And the technology doesn't get in the way of the driving as
yes.
well. So, because I played through all of these on the novice difficulty, beat all of those, which was, it's pretty easy to do. And then I went to intermediate, which was more of a challenge, but not terrible. I lost some races, but I won some. I didn't even attempt the pro, because the pro is when it makes you manually shift. Which, to
Yes.
be fair, shifting in this game is tough. It's just the shoulder buttons, and just kind of knowing when to hit them. So I'm sure it like the learning curve isn't ridiculous or anything like that. And like Road Rash, you can also run away from the cops. Like a notable theme in the Need for Speed series, Hot Pursuit and Most Wanted and all that, is trying to avoid the police, and it's right here in the original game as well. And for the most part, you won't run into any issues. I had one race, I got pulled over like 3 times just because I kept accidentally hitting like another car when a cop was coming up to me. And you get a funny little still image of them giving you a ticket, and it just says speeding on it, which is really funny. And then at the end of that race, the dude, I'm sure he has a name, I'm just gonna call him the dude. He was just like, man, you gotta work out those parking tickets or the speeding tickets, man. You're just fucking up, basically. And it's like, shut up, you asshole. But but it was funny, Because before playing this game, did you have any Need for Speed? Did you play any of the other games in the series?
Oh, I played like 1 through. So I played all the classics, like Need for Speed 1 all the way up to Hot Pursuit 2 on PlayStation 2. And then I played the Underground games. I kind of fell off after that because they got real. That's when they started getting super technical. And they kind of lost the kind of just like fun racing feel that they had. Then I moved on to just other games by that point. But all Need for Speed, like the reason why I really wanted to play this game is just because I love racing games, and like Need for Speed was just great as it was.
Yeah, for sure. And I had some limited knowledge of Need for Speed. Like, I remember years ago, I got like this collection of like 4 PC games, and one of them was Need for Speed. I can't remember if it was Hot Pursuit 1 or Hot Pursuit 2, because they both look familiar to me, and they both had PC releases. And I remember enjoying that game. And I have the Game Boy Advance version of Porsche Unleashed. In fact, Porsche Unleashed, which I remember playing that a lot and thought it was pretty impressive for a GBA game. And then I remember with my GameCube, I had the original Underground, and I still really liked Underground 1. Like, it's really cool. Like, I enjoyed the theming of that game. It ties in with like the early Fast and Furious movies, like the first like 2 or whatever. It definitely fits in with that sort of underground street racing world, I guess. But other than that, I haven't played any other Need for Speed since the original Underground. But I was never the biggest racing game guy,
Yeah. So I actually picked up Need for Speed Most Wanted, not the original Most Wanted, the remake that they did years later. Well, not remake. I think it's just they made another Most Wanted. I picked it up on the Vita just for to have more racing games on my Vita. It's not bad.
Is that the one they did the like they ported everything to, or am I thinking of a different one? I think I'm thinking Hot Pursuit.
You might be thinking Hot Pursuit.
Because when they rebooted Hot Pursuit, and then a couple years ago they put it on like everything.
Yeah, I think that's the one, because I know.
Okay.
Most Wanted got Most Wanted came out on the Vita when it came out on the consoles as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. And at that point they were being made by Criterion, the Burnout developers.
Yep, they were.
Because they originally weren't made by them. They were made by like EA Black Box for a long time.
The original the development of Need for Speed is actually really confusing, because they've been through so many developers over the years. The original game, and I believe its first few sequels, were developed by EA Canada, who is now EA Vancouver, I believe.
Yeah.
Eventually, development got moved over to Black Box, who was the main developer for the series for a long time. I'm not even sure if Black Box is still around, to be honest.
It says was, so probably not.
Yeah.
EA killed them like they kill everything else.
Yeah, Black Box's first game was Hot Pursuit 2, and then they immediately changed everything with Underground. bringing in their own new ideas, which you can see very clearly because Underground is where they really started changing it up, which for Underground 1 and 2, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and then the last Need for Speed they made was The Run, and then they helped out on Battlefield Hardline, and then they went away shortly after that.
They probably got absorbed into some other EA studio, and that's never mind. I'm thinking of Activision.
Yeah, because Battlefield Hardline was also made by another EA studio that got dissolved, Visceral Games. R.I.P. Love, so good. I need to try Battlefield Hardline. Like, it's probably not great, but it's on Game Pass, and it'd probably be a quick play. Just because I'm curious to, like, because it's like I keep seeing, not to deviate too much, but I keep seeing this game pop up for me, and I'm like, maybe I should just play it, see what the deal is. Have you played it at all?
Nah, I was never a big FPS guy. Well,
okay.
that style FPS, anyways.
Fair enough. Like the Battlefields I want to play are the two Bad Company games, because those are very much praised, especially 2. Like 2 has a really good story, so. But we'll get to that eventually. But anyways, yeah, EA Black Box, got. It said that it doesn't say they got dissolved into anybody. Like they turned into EA Jawbreaker for a little bit, which is a terrible name.
Okay.
Like, and yeah, so they're just dead. And then Criterion took over the series. Well, for a little bit, but now they're being made by Ghost Games?
Ghost Games made Rivals. Rivals was pretty good. I played that one.
Yeah, they made just Need for Speed, just online open world racing. Is that the one based on the movie?
I believe that's the one based off the movie.
Okay, and then Payback, Heat, and then this new one, it's Unbound, is Criterion and Codemasters. And I'm like, shit, Codemasters still exist? They still exist?
EA owns them now.
And they haven't dissolved them yet?
No, because they make they make the F1 games, and those make a lot of money.
Are they any good?
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're very hard.
Fair enough.
And
this year they've made EA Sports WRC Rally.
Oh yeah, they're making that now too.
Well, that came out in November. Got decent reviews.
They're a really good racing game studio. Like if you look back at their history, they've made some great games over the years.
Oh yeah, because I remember when they made stuff like Operation Flashpoint and Rise of the Argonauts. They made some James Pond games. They did the Overlord games, which I like the Overlord games. They did a bunch of random stuff. I swear, they had like a game, like a PS2 GameCube era game. Oh yeah, they did Second Sight. That's a real cool game. You ever played Second Sight?
That sounds familiar. I'll have to look it up because
Oh, they published it. They didn't develop it. Free Radical Design developed it, but it's like a science fiction action adventure game where it's like there's like a parapsychology in it, and you're kind of like losing your mind as you play the game. It's an interesting game. It's one that kind of fell through the cracks back in the day, but I actually think it's not bad.
Yeah, it's crazy, and like we were talking a little bit off camera, but like we mentioned like the Burnout series. I believe Burnout is like one of the biggest series that was inspired by Need for Speed directly.
Yeah, and the dev team that made the Burnout games eventually started making the Need for Speed games.
Yep.
So, and it's weird that we haven't had a Burnout game, like a new Burnout game, since Burnout Crash in 2011. Like we did get Burnout Paradise Remastered, which is everywhere, and I've been playing that. Actually, because of playing Need for Speed, it made me want to go back and play Burnout Paradise. And goddamn, if that's not like, that might be my favorite racing game of all time, just because like I love open world racers. Like the Forza Horizon games are fantastic, but sometimes there's just too much to do, and I just get so overwhelmed. It's like,
Yeah.
But Burnout Paradise, for being open world, it's still very streamlined, and you can just kind of make your own fun in it. You know, like you can either do all the challenges to get all the to upgrade your license, or you can just drive around breaking all of the billboards you can find and just randomly crashing people. Like Burnout Paradise is so good. Like apparently it's a divisive game for Burnout fans in the series, but I haven't played enough of the rest of the games to know why. But for me, it's like the might just be like the perfect racer for me. Like it's very pick up and play arcadey, but it's so easy to get like sucked into it. You know what I mean? Like it's just big enough. You know, it's not too big, it's not too small. It's just big enough to where you can spend like an hour and kind of like roughly see the whole map, you know. But there's so many unique locales in Paradise that it's easy just kind of get stuck in one little like area, like oh the woods area, and then you like go out into the main metropolitan city area, and then you go on Big Surf Island where even crazier shit happens. You know, like it's a good time. And these days it feels like racing games, like I think arcade racers are trying to make a comeback, but I feel like they're not sticking as well as people would have hoped, you know? Because I remember when Cruise and Blast came out on Switch, a lot of people tried to make that a big deal. And it is a very fun game, but it didn't really set the world on fire. But I wasn't necessarily expecting it to, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the racing game kind of went through a lull there for a while. And it's like just now starting to like pick it back up. Like I think one of the series that really helped repopularize it was actually Forza, especially with like the Forza Horizon games.
Oh, because the Forza Horizons are fantastic. They're so much fun. Like, because you can make those as arcadey or a simulation as you want. They let you do both, and both are rewarding in their own ways. Like, I've played some Forza Motorsport. I really like Motorsport, but I don't know, just Horizon kind of fits more. Just because I like when crazy shit happens in racing games. You know what I mean? When they're just over the top ridiculous. But there is some fun to be had in the more Gran Turismo style simulation racers, which obviously Gran Turismo is still going. It had a fucking movie of all series to get a movie, and the movie isn't about like, it's not like an in-universe like story. It's about like a video game competition where like, oh, you're really good at Gran Turismo? Well, we're going to make you an actual driver, which I don't think that's how that works.
Well, there's a few NASCAR drivers that made it big on iRacing, so.
Yeah. I mean, there is a way to make racing games that simulation. Like I've seen the rigs, you know, with the wheel and the crazy feedback and all that, which is impressive, but it's also at the same time, just get a car. Just drive a fucking car around, you know? Like I can't get into that much, you know, because it's like I drive and I don't necessarily want to have that kind of experience like doing like a race kind of a thing. Like that's not what I want. I'd rather just put a controller in my hand and do it. But still good for them. And I mean, and with Need for Speed Unbound existing as well, it's like there is still a market for racing games. Even and Unbound feels much more like a race, like an arcadey style racing game. Like there's like cartoon sort of effects sprinkled throughout the game and everything. It has that Criterion stamp on it, because that's what I like about the Criterion stuff I've played, is that they don't take it too seriously.
You can tell that EA still very much cares about Need for Speed.
Yeah, but they don't care about Burnout at all. Which I feel like if you wanted to do a new Burnout game, I think it would work. I think people would be excited to see that name come back and to have something. But like, what would you do? Would you do another like a Takedown or like a revenge style game? Would you do another Burnout Paradise? You know, like what would you do? I think it would probably be better to do like a Burnout 3 or Burnout Revenge. Like those are like the games everybody loves from that series that I've never played. And it's like, instead of just doing another open world racer, you know, like give it that signature Burnout style if they were to bring it back, you know. But I don't know. But yeah, as you said, EA values Need for Speed much more. And I think it's just because they can do a lot more with the Need for Speed series, you know, because they've had like this, like some of the early games are much more kind of borderline simulation based, but not like hardcore. And then they can do like this stuff like Unbound, which is much more arcadey and kind of silly. Like it can kind of, you know, weave in and out of what it wants to do, which I think helps, because with Burnout, it's the whole thing is the crashes and the crazy excitement. Is like, how many times can you make that before people get sick of it, you know?
Also, Need for Speed is just a recognizable name. Like when you think racing games, like everybody knows Need for Speed.
Yeah.
It's just been around for so long.
Even if you've never played it, like
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, like because it's like I was talking to a friend about like racing games once, and they were kind of like they were kind of just like nodding along to the conversation. Then I brought up Need for Speed, and they immediately like perked up, and I'm like, okay, so you know this one.
Yeah. And it's one of the best selling video game franchises of all time, actually. Like it's above Resident Evil. So
it's also like just like I always loved how stylized the series kind of was. Like
yeah, and this game has a style.
Oh yeah, like the box art for this game is iconic to me in a lot of ways. Like it's weird because it has the Road and Track advertisement just plastered right across it, but it's also it's also the only game that used the Need for Speed as the title because they dropped the very quickly after. And just that like Corvette, I'm assuming that's a Corvette on the side, like with the wheel. That's just like I've known that cover art. That cover art's been in my head since I was like 5 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why. It's a very striking cover. And for some reason in Japan, it's not called Need for Speed; it's called Overdriving. Which
there's probably there's probably some weird licensing issue.
Mm-hmm. Though I'm sure you'll know this. Road and Track sponsored another racing game. Do you know which one that is?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, it was like a sim racer on like computer from like 1992. A game called Grand Prix Unlimited.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I completely forgot Road and Track published partnered with them.
Yeah, made by Accolade, or our good buddies Accolade.
Ah, the guys who made Test Drive. That's funny.
And Bubsy. But yeah, they did make. I've never played a Test Drive game.
They're so hit or miss. Like Test Drive 6, great game.
Isn't the one everyone likes on the Dreamcast? Le Mans? Is that the one everyone likes?
Test Drive Le Mans is way better than it has any right to be.
Okay, is that the one to play?
So in terms of test drives, I highly recommend I say 6. 6 for the old ones. Le Mans, if you want just a general, like really good sim racer. And then the 2 that I highly recommend are the 2 unlimited ones that came out on 360.
Yeah, I remember Test Drive Unlimited. Like that's a name I recognize. But
I have nostalgia
I was never a racing game guy.
I have a lot of nostalgia for Test Drive Off-Road Wide Open on PS2. That one was a pretty fun one, mostly just for the free roam mode, because you basically have to free roam these massive open like areas and just drive around.
Yeah, but like every time I've tried to play like an off-road racer, like MX versus ATV or something like that, I just end up not enjoying it. Which is a shame because I like the idea of it. You know, like the MX versus ATV, like those covers are fantastic. Like I love how those look, but I play the game and I'm just like I don't like this. Like it's too bumpy.
Yeah,
which is accurate. But it's accurate because it's off-road racing, but it just doesn't do it for me. You know, I need smooth roads, I guess.
Yeah, there's just something different about a game like that where you can just like kind of go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like give me like a Forza Horizon any day, you know, or Burnout Paradise. It's really good. It would be cool if they did a sequel to that, but I highly doubt they will. But there's enough content in Paradise to where if you've never played it like me, you can sink hours into that game.
I mean, Ridge Racer, that's a great series as well.
Oh, Ridge Racer Type 4.
Type 4.
That game is phenomenal. That's probably like honestly, I like that more than Gran Turismo.
Might be a hot take, but I think that's the best racing game on PS1.
Type 4?
Oh yeah.
I would agree, actually. Like, Gran Turismo 2 is pretty fucking fantastic. Like, that's one of the most impressive racing games I've ever played. You know, just for what they did with that game. But I would much rather play Ridge Racer Type 4 because I think, I'm sure you'd agree with me, there is a level of pick up and play with a racing game that makes them very easy entry. And I think Gran Turismo, at least those early ones, I haven't played like any past the two on PS1, struggle with. Because Ridge Racer 2, like if you put in the simulation disc, you know, and you're trying, and I cannot figure out how to fucking play that game, like how to set it up.
You mean
anything.
You mean Gran Turismo?
Yeah, Gran Turismo 2, when you put in like the simulation disc, and I'm trying to figure out what the fuck to do because it's so confusing. But like Ridge Racer Type 4, you pop it in, be like, oh, go to a race, and then you just race. And I'm like, there we go.
My favorite difference between, so when I was a kid playing racing games for the first time, my favorite difference between playing like say Type 4 and then Gran Turismo was I'd pop in Type 4 and I'd just immediately jump into a race and be like doing all these crazy like stunts and stuff and like having a great time. In Gran Turismo, when I try to drive, I hit the turn button, I drive into a wall because this car drives like a real car. It's like you can't just turn on a dime.
Well, Gran Turismo tries to have the arcade mode, but it's not what people like about the series. So
no, they like making their super hyped up like sports car and then driving it around like a real car.
Yeah, and I'm sure I should try playing more of the Gran Turismo games because I'm sure I would enjoy them. But of course, I'm not sure which one they even play. So
I'd recommend like 4, maybe. 4 is a really good one.
Was that the PS2 one?
That was the second one on PS2. 5 on PS3 is pretty good as well, but playing that's hard because PS3 games are kind of locked to it.
Fair enough. Yeah, there was one. I think it is Gran Turismo 4, but I thought I had like it's one that has like a blue cover.
Oh, that's 3.
Really good.
A-Spec 3. Yeah. That one's really good too.
Yeah.
The only downside to the PS2 Gran Turismos is they don't have damage.
I don't care about that.
Okay. Some people do. It was a very controversial thing for a while.
Well, I guess if you're like a sim racer person, that's what you like. You care about that for sure. But I don't know. It's not that big a deal for me. And then, but I find it interesting though. It could be a principle thing that like Gran Turismo has yet to do a Forza Horizon type game. Because when Forza Horizon came out, the original, which surprisingly holds up, I was always, at least when I was like looking into the series, I was like, ooh, I wonder if Gran Turismo has attempted something like a Forza Horizon, and they never have, as far as I know.
They kind of did with Gran Turismo Tour on PS4, but it's not
Tour.
I think it's called Tour. I might be completely.
I mean, I believe you. It's just I don't see anything here labeled that because there was.
I'm probably forgetting the name. Well, let me look it up real quick.
Because I imagine Gran Turismo, they could do something like
it's not Tour, Gran Turismo Sport.
Oh, Sport. Okay. So that was them trying to do like a Horizon type thing?
It's not quite Horizon-ish, but it was they tried something different. It was more, it was less sim-like, because I mean, I thought that was Gran Turismo 7 for the longest time, and then we got 7 on PS5 later on, so.
Oh boy. That game had a lot of controversy when that came out.
I mean, to me, I had no problem with it because it was exactly what I've always thought Gran Turismo was, a grindy game.
Well, the issues I had heard was the aggressive microtransactions in the game.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's just part of gaming these days, and we're gonna.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah. I guess it depends on the game you're playing, because, like, I mean, I'm sure it exists in, like, Forza Horizon, but, like, I guess I just, like, gloss over it, you know? But then again, with the Horizon games, it's like, oh, you can just, you know, you're not trying to compete with people. At least I'm not. I'm just driving around having fun. So I don't really worry about that. But I imagine with Gran Turismo, it being more a competitive game, that could definitely be an issue. Yeah. You know, say with Madden, for example, how it's like essentially a competitive online game these days, and that's why it sucks. And they want you to buy like the Madden Ultimate Team cards and everything. So, but
it's kind of sad. We've kind of completely drifted away from Need for Speed, and unfortunately, as much as Need for Speed is a great game, there's just not a lot of game because it's
very bare bones.
You can tell it's the first one.
Yeah, but what's there is good, you know, and I don't have enough knowledge about the rest of the series to really comment, you know, but I know my time
they only get better.
Speed series has been good. Oh yeah. Like if it were up to me, I would be like, let's let's like play Underground 1 and 2 and talk about that, you know,
Oh yeah.
because I'm sure there's a lot to talk about with those games. I used to be dog shit at that game, but I loved customizing the cars, you know, where they would be like that slow, you know, like just kind of in that like little light cruise mode through just some giant ass parking garage that never ends. And it's just playing like mid 2000s hip hop music that you'd hear at like middle school dances,
Oh yeah.
you know,
They
like Lil Jon and Usher all over there while you're just like trying to pimp your car out when you're like a white boy who knows nothing about this stuff, you know, like
the
that's
window
what I
to the
remember
wall.
more. Oh God. Oh Jesus. Oh,
You know
love
what?
that song.
Why? You know why I bring that song up?
Why do you
Because
bring that song up?
just a little tangent. I don't know if we brought this
A
up in
little tangent.
the GBA episode we did, but these games, Need for Speed Underground was ported over to Game Boy Advance, and they brought the soundtracks with them, and they're horribly bit crushed, and it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, that's true. I think I have one of the Need for Speed. I have Porsche Unleashed because that was like an early game that I had for it, you know, and I liked it. I may have Underground. I'm not sure. I'd have to check.
If you ever want to chuckle, just look up the GBA version of the Window to the Wall song. It is amazing.
And there is something hilarious about that song. Like when I was in like middle school and high school, whenever they'd play that song at a dance and everybody would just like get super hype about it, you know? And like you just have all these 14-year-olds like screaming, you know, till the sweat drops down my balls, like the full uncensored version, which is
and then the teachers would be running over, being like, "Oh no!"
Oh, they would just let it go.
No, not in my school.
Like,
they were
in my school, they're just like, they're just gonna say it. We're not gonna stop them. But to be fair, the high school I went to was very racially diverse. So
yeah, mine was,
which was good. I got a lot of different perspectives on things, and for a little bit, I was the token white boy in the friend group for a little bit, which that was fun. That was fun for a while, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a farming community, so
yeah, I grew up in a suburban, you know, environment in the Midwest, and I think that's either going to be entirely white or racially diverse. But to be fair, we were always close to one of the big cities, or at least one of the more medium-sized cities in Ohio. So that probably helps, you know, having that sort of connection to it, you know.
Speaking of the music, though, what do you think of all the music and like production that they did for this game, the original Need for Speed?
It's not bad. It's not as good as Road Rash. Like so, yeah, that Road Rash stuff is phenomenal.
They didn't go super like licensee on this one. Like they really went more into the licensed music with the later games.
I feel like they couldn't afford it at this time because EA is still like, I mean, they have money, but they're not like a huge conglomerate yet, you know.
I think they also wanted to focus more on the actual. They didn't want to fill the disc up so much with the music this time around because they wanted to put more into the actual game.
For sure, because I still had that issue with Road Rash where like the music just wouldn't play for me for some reason. Like
it's
in
the
game, like in the menus it was there, but in the game it wasn't. You would just hear the constant of the motorcycle, but then I would turn it off and then the game would just be dead quiet, except for the occasional when you try to hit somebody off of a motorcycle, which was weird, but like watching it was kind of meditative because there was no sound.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this game does a better job with the presentation in that regard. And yeah, it definitely feels like a precursor to like a more Gran Turismo style sim racer, you know, because I wouldn't be surprised if Polyphony Digital, I think if I'm saying that right, played this game and thought, oh, we could go even further than this, you know, because even the first Gran Turismo is more simmy than this, but it's not impossible to play, at least from my experience with it.
We always got to remember Polyphony's first game was a kart racer.
That it was the what was that game called?
Motor Tune Grand Prix.
That's right. I've never played that game.
It's really fun. Like you can see a lot of like the early Polyphony like touching it, and it's a fun little racer. We never got the first one though. We only got the second one.
Yeah. Outside of Gran Turismo, they've only done like a couple of other games. Like they did like a shoot 'em up called Omega Boost.
So that game is really interesting to me because it's the only non-racing game they've ever made. and
Yes.
it was actually made so during that point of time, a lot of Polyphony's staff was actually composed of they had absorbed basically after Sega shut down Team Andromeda, they had absorbed a bunch of Team Andromeda into Polyphony, and that was basically the basically the Panzer Dragoon team's like final hurrah doing a rail shooter.
So we can connect Panzer's Dragoon Saga to Gran Turismo.
Yeah, no, in an interesting kind of meta way.
Man, no man is an island.
I think they also did a motorcycle racing game called like Taurus Trophy at one point.
Yeah, the real riding simulator.
I love their names.
Yeah, and then they remade the original Gran Turismo on the PS3 as Gran Turismo HD. Is that correct?
It was like a semi remake.
Yeah, it's called HD Concept, which I'm like, you don't release a game called HD Concept. What the hell's wrong with you?
The development of Gran Turismo 5 is really fucking interesting because it took fucking forever.
Yeah, the fucking prologue came out in 2007, and then the game came out in 2010.
Because they had HD Concept, which never got a physical release. It only released digitally. That was just to test the waters of HD. Then they did Prologue, and they were like, "Look what we can do with HD." And then it's like, the full game's coming soon. Here's a PSP game.
I've played the PSP Turismo. That's a solid game.
As much as I think Forza has eclipsed them in a lot of ways, you can't deny Polyphony makes great stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like I've put more time into the Forza series overall. You know, of course, I'm an Xbox guy. And I think like Forza Horizon is probably like the premier racing series, even though it's funny to see people online complain about like, oh, Forza 1 and 2 were good, or no, 1 through 3 were good, but 4 and 5 are bad. And I'm like, what the fuck are you people complaining about?
I mean, Gran Turismo fans do the same thing. So
what I've gathered is the Forza Horizon series hasn't evolved much past 3, and that 4 and 5 are just kind of more of the same. Yeah. And there is some truth in that, but I feel it's like they're so good, it doesn't matter. Like, because Horizon 5 is such a fun game to play. Even Horizon 4 and 3 are also super fun to play. So I don't care that much. And the team that makes them, fuck, I can't think of their name off the top of my head. They're working on the Fable reboot now. So it'll probably be a good while before we get Playground. It'll be a while before we get like another Horizon game from them, because the Fable reboot, hopefully that's not 24. That'll probably be 25, I think. But that's fine. It'll give me enough time to play that series. But in any case, the world of racing games is an interesting kind of world, you know, because it's like it's such a basic concept. You know, it's like racing games have been around forever because it's like the easiest thing to make a game out of, right? And there are so many different styles of racing games.
Oh yeah,
you know,
you'd never expect racing games to be one of the most like diverse series in gaming.
Yeah, but
diverse genres.
Yeah, but then being some of the most popular makes all the sense in the world. Especially with like, you know, how Gran Turismo, it's like even the PS3 games look amazing. Like even if that came out today, people would be like, that shit looks good, you know? And then you just kind of mix that with like some games having better pick up and play gameplay than others. You know, it's just so easy to kind of enjoy a racing game, you know?
Oh yeah.
But not everybody's going to be like you, who just knows all the in and outs of all these different series and is kind of a connoisseur of the racing genre. Most people are going to be like me, who are like, oh, I've played a few of them here and there, and they're really good.
See, the thing about racing games that's so fun is like, because they straddle that weird line of like sports games, a lot of them are like worthless. And you can just go to like any retro game store, browse, say their PS1, like PS2, Xbox, like a used game library, and you'll find like 30 racing games all for like $1 or $2 a piece. So it's like,
yeah, that is weird because I don't consider racing games sports games. I think they're their own genre, you know?
Yeah, they straddle that weird line. And it's like, because of that, I mean, it makes it great for collectors of them.
But then also there are some racing games that are just incredibly expensive. Like Like I think one of the most expensive GBA games is like a Sega Rally GT Championship or whatever. Like that game is ridiculously priced.
Tokyo Extreme Racer 2 on the Dreamcast is like absurdly expensive for whatever reason.
Yeah, like you'll get those ones here and there that are like, why is that so pricey? Because you see and you're like, it's just a racing game. You know, like well, there's Car Battler Joe, but that's kind of like a car racer RPG kind of thing. You know, that's a little different. Oh yeah, Moto Racer Advance, that's the one. That's like loose is like almost $200. And it's like, why the fuck is this game almost $200? It's just a racing game. You know? Like
Yeah.
I imagine like the Gran Turismos, like I'm sure they're not worthless, but they're not like super fucking expensive.
So they're cheap because they were all produced to hell. There's tons of them out there.
Yeah, like isn't the best selling game on the PS1 Gran Turismo?
It's either Gran Turismo or Gran Turismo 2.
Yeah,
which
blows my mind.
I think PS2 is PS2 is GTA San Andreas, but I think the best selling Sony game is Gran Turismo 3.
Yeah, like that's just so wacky, you know?
Oh yeah.
But
people like their racing games. I mean, to be fair though, Gran Turismo still I think was a cultural phenomenon when it came out.
Yeah, I think that was the right game at the right time because it being a racing game with that kind of style definitely appealed to the PS1 audience that they were trying to get at the time. And it kind of goes with that visceral thing of like video games. It's like, oh yeah, I got to have a racing game because it's fun because they're at the end of the day, they're fun. And when they're made well, like a Ridge Racer Type 4, a Burnout Paradise, a Forza Horizon 5, like those games are fun, you know, and you can spend hours just driving around and just doing random shit or just constantly going in races over and over. Even Mario Kart. I haven't even fucking brought up Mario Kart because I think it's overrated, but they're great games, you know, like Mario Kart 8 is one of the best selling games of all time, you know, which is fucking incredible. It is, but I'm sick of it.
True. Very true.
But when the next Mario Kart comes out, Mario Kart 9 or 10 or whatever the fuck it's going to be called, like that game is going to sell like crazy. We all know it. We're all going to buy it and we're all going to play it. So
we're all going to be mad about getting blue shelled.
Yeah, as we always do, but it is what it is. So
yeah.
But yeah, coming around, the original Need for Speed, I mean, it's not a bad game for what it is. For being the first in a series, it holds up a lot better than you'd think it would. It's not perfect, but
no,
I did.
Those menus need help.
Yeah, those menus need help, and it does feel aged in a lot of ways, but I think it holds up a lot better than some would give it credit for. And it birthed the series that still goes strong to this day. You know, it's kind of like a mid-tier series, I guess, that it's like a series we know about and that it sells well, but we wouldn't consider it like this big juggernaut series, like say a Gran Turismo or even like a Forza.
Yeah.
You know, where those are kind of elevated to be like, those are the big ones, right? Even like a Mario Kart, like those are the big ones. Need for Speed's like right below that, but it still hangs. And, you know, who knows? I may start dipping my toes into more of them, especially because with Game Pass, you know, they're all available there. In fact, Burnout Paradise was Game Pass. That's how I downloaded it. And it's been a great ass time. So who knows?
No, by far. So before we get into must play, stay away. Okay. I will say no memory manager. Oh, well,
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, what save data do you have in this game? Except your high score, maybe, but
yeah, not a lot.
I don't even know how it gauges that score. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But who cares?
So for must play, okay, stay away. I'm gonna say must play. I'm gonna go there because I feel like it's such a piece of history, and it's not an infuriating. It's not like Alone in the Dark where you played and you're like, yeah, I get why this is important, but this plays like shit. You can play Need for Speed and be like, I get why this is important, and it's still pretty fun to play in a lot of ways. I'm going to say must play.
I agree. I said, you know what? Fuck it. It's a must play. That's what I said when I was playing it, because it's not a bad game by any means. You know, it's historically important. It surprisingly holds up. And it's kind of worth playing to sort of see the evolution of racing games, you know?
Mm,
Like this is sort of how we get from virtual racing to Gran Turismo is like this game,
yeah,
basically. So it's important in that context, and it birthed a series that still goes on and still has its fans. So
a
and
series
it's
that I
and it
think hits its 30-year anniversary next year.
30. I know, trust me, I know. Um, and yeah, like that series still has its fans, and it's a series that hasn't like completely dropped off. As
No,
far as I know, it never had surprisingly for an EA series, it never had like a period of just like, oh, all these games are shit. There's probably some bad ones in there, but for the most part, people still talk about the series well. They're like, yeah, those games still hold up. So
I don't
I
think
think
there's
that
a
has
need
to
for
count for
speed.
something.
Yeah, like I don't think there's a need for speed that like I've seen where people will be like, "Don't play that one." I'm pretty sure most
I,
people are
I'm
kind of.
sure. I'm sure there is one though.
I'm sure there's some that are considered meh, but like there isn't like a Sonic '06 in there where it's like this game is just trash.
Oh, if there is one, please let us know because I want to play that one.
Yeah. So I then other question I have is obviously in terms of racing games for 3DO that we've played so far. I mean, it's better than Crash and Burn. That's not even an argument. Um,
Yeah.
the real question is though, Need for Speed or um, Road Rash? Like,
Oh, Road Rash.
yeah,
Because
I,
Road Rash is such an anomaly of a game, kind of in general, that it perfectly fits the 3DO as a console. This weird anomaly. Whereas Need for Speed is still really good, but there are better versions of it in other places.
true.
But
Yeah,
it is
because
still up there as like something to be worth playing.
I mean, I still say out of all the games we've played so far, I still put Road Rash at number one, like best game on the system.
Yeah.
Um,
Honestly, this is probably number two.
yeah, it's like this and then Madden, I think, are like the three best games for the system at the moment. Ironically, three EA games. I mean,
Racing and sports. That's what the 3DO does best, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I guess the best original game. Other than that, I mean, it's like either like Return Fire or like Twisted, but those are like hard to
I'd give that
recommend.
I'd give that to Return Fire.
Yeah,
Because I really enjoyed Return Fire. Whereas Twisted, like I still think about that game once in a while, but I never think about putting it in again. I just go,
no.
that was weird. I subjected a friend of mine to that, and he still talks to me, so he must really
Twisted
like me.
is yeah, Twisted's definitely a game I recommend like playing with like people who have never experienced it just to see the
Oh, for sure.
reactions.
Oh, for sure. If I ever find a woman desperate enough to date me, I'm gonna be like, babe, you have to play this game with me, and I'm gonna make her play it, and that will be fun. Or when my son gets old enough, I'm gonna try to play this with him just to see how he feels about it as well, because that would be interesting to get like a 7 or 8 year old's take on this game.
Yeah.
So I feel like he'd either like it or just be like, "Can we just do something else, Dad? I want
Can
to
we
play the
not?
Switch. Can I play the Switch? Like, yeah, go play the Switch." So
Yeah. That's awesome. But yeah, so another double must play. We've had a couple. I think we've had like three of them at this point now.
yeah, I think so.
I think that it's literally Road Rash, Madden, and this.
Oh yeah, I know where my priorities are.
I mean, it's good because we've had a bunch of stinkers lately. Because I mean, the last couple of games were like D.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, horror games typically don't age well. I mean,
No,
hell, I was looking at footage of I think it was Outlast recently, and that game's not even that old. But I'm like, man, this doesn't hold up.
no, it
It's
doesn't
not
at
even
all.
that old. Yeah. So you just gotta get horror done right.
Yeah. All right. Well, this one we made about an hour, so I figured this is a good enough time as any to sign off. I guess before we do that, though, what game do you think we should play next?
Well, I gave you two choices, and it was though we could maybe throw it to the audience if you want. I was thinking let's do something a little different and choose some puzzle games. And there were two
Yeah.
puzzle games that came to mind. One is Icebreaker, which is like a game where you're a triangle and you shoot other triangles. And then a game called The Incredible Machine, which is
Mm.
essentially Rube Goldberg contraption, the video game. So both of them I've played, and I have feelings on both already. But either if you want to decide it now, or if you want to let the listeners decide for us, I'm cool either way.
Last time we did a poll, it went very well. So I think actually, yeah, let's do that. And I guess if we need a third puzzle game, I can throw in Shanghai Triple Threat, I guess. That's a puzzle
if
game.
you want.
We
If you isn't that just a mahjong game?
Yeah, it is, but
if we can get an hour out of that, we're fucking geniuses.
if we can get half an hour out of that, that would be impressive.
Yeah, out of a Flash game.
It's got a really catchy background song. That's about all I can say. But
I'll give it that.
Yeah. So I'll run a poll. Is it Icebreaker?
Icebreaker, yeah. Have you not played Icebreaker?
I don't think I have. I'll have to look into that.
Okay, I'd be curious to your take on it.
Yeah, so I'll do that a poll. Icebreaker, Incredible Machine, and Shanghai is a joke.
Someone's gonna vote for it as a joke, or they're gonna make us play it. I'm gonna hate you people if you do that.
Will over on the novel console one is probably gonna vote for it just to troll us. But
of course.
Yeah, all right. But yeah, so we'll do that. So I'll definitely have that going on the Twitter. By the time, this will be out tomorrow. So
sounds good.
But anyways, guys, once again, thanks for joining us on the 3DO Experience. You can find 3DO Experience on all the podcasting platforms. And you can find all of our links at linktree/theBarbergames, and you can join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server to keep up with all things GNC, 3DO, and Geek Addicts.
And before we go if you don't mind, I'm going to pitch my old King Crimson podcast, Frame by Frame, has returned. We finally did an episode on the song Starless, ending the Red album. So it's probably that show is probably coming back in a more semi-regular basis. So if you're interested in anything King Crimson, please check that podcast out. I would greatly appreciate it. It's a pet project I've had for a long time, but I'm glad to see it getting somewhat back. So if y'all listen to that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll throw a link to that in the description for this episode. All right. And with that, guys, we will see you all later.
Bye-bye.